Yeah, I don't participate.
So we got 4 seconds, gentlemen.
And Bob.
Dave
Bob will-
usually tells me, but
On record? Okay, here comes Bob.
Well, you took Rex's spot, didn't you? Okay.
well, I'm the mayor.
Yeah.
I kind of,
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are here for
Mr.
the
Dempsey?
January Airport Advisory Board meeting. Agenda. Thank you. Looks like we have full board, man.
everybody.
How unusual.
What happened?
Had to push through a bunch, I guess, huh?
And what we do in this meeting is we start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. So if you would please rise. And Jan Lee will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have an action item, which is to approve the meeting minutes from the last meeting. I'm sure you all read them.
Are those attached to the announcement this time around?
They were not.
I didn't see those. And can I make a move that we postpone that until next meeting?
I didn't get a chance to read them.
I think, so I believe what happened here was that the minutes were not distributed to the members prior to the meeting. So we could either read them right now and approve them, or we could table it and approve the minutes at the next meeting after we've had a chance to read them.
I'd move that we table the meetings from the last meeting, the minutes from the last meeting, until the next meeting.
Is there a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded for discussion. Everybody agree with that? We want to chat about it?
How does Congress do 1,000 pages in a day? You guys.
You know the answer.
Because I'm not familiar with the members, may I ask who seconded that motion?
Andrew?
And
Motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Try this next time, Jennifer. Next item, number 2, public comment to the board.
Airport looks great. Dale, looking good, buddy. Thanks, Scotty.
Snow removal has been.
Yeah, snow.
Phenomenal.
Yeah, this, you are
It's like
on it,
a
mister.
It's like as if the runways are dry all the time.
Can we vote in a raise?
Yeah, no. Okay, we'll segue into a field operations update from one Mr. Dale Lockwood.
I use the fancy microphone they gave just to me. I'm Dale Lockwood, Airport Maintenance Manager. So Sandpoint Airport,
Hey Dale, could you hold for 1 second on that?
sure.
Pardon me, but I just noticed that we do have some attendees online. Do any of the online folks have any public comment?
I don't.
Hearing none? Dale, please proceed.
Okay. So, as you might have noticed, snow has been a little slow this year. And we try and take care of everything we possibly can before winter so that we are focused on that. So we had to scratch a little bit to come up with things to do that's productive. So we've been focusing on equipment upgrades, and we're gonna put the bristles on the broom truck, the new bristles and the slides. We're gonna do that probably Wednesday. And we built, there's pictures scattered around with our old plow truck that we got rid of. We really wanted to reuse the blade on that because it works so good for so many things if it's on a loader. So I'm anxious to try that maybe this weekend. But that, I think, is going to be a real big deal for us. In a perfect world, we would get away from trucks and use loaders just because they're so versatile and they'll do so many different things. That plow will probably work really good on the runway. The plow truck we have, our newer plow truck, does not work great because you have to go fast. And we do not plow snow off the runway. We windrow and blow it. So if we get the plow truck out on the runway and it starts going fast up and down the center line, and then we take that loader with that old speed plow and we focus on the edges and bunching it up for the 3 miles of windrows for blowing, I think that will work really good. And it will also work better for getting from the exit center line kind of deal over to the lights, because our very nice snow pushers that go on our loaders will harvest dirt if they get off the runway over 2 feet. And with this plow, we can hang probably 6-8 feet off the taxiway exits without digging. So I'm crossing my fingers for that. That's primarily Sandpoint, but we have a trailer, so we could take it over to Priest River if it would help over there too. So I think that's going to be a big deal for us. It costs us a little bit of money, but with the help of Coeur d'Alene Airport, we had received a new to us old pilot-controlled runway lighting controller that worked great for a while, and then it started doing the same thing our old one did, so we had to purchase a new one, a modern one. And with the help of Wade Burnett, our electrical guy, it's online and working great so far. And we have a new windsock, but I think we covered that.
Did they have those old numbers? Remember we were talking about runway numbers? That Coeur d'Alene has the same runway. You might want to ask them about their old stuff. Anything come of that?
No, sorry. Yep, that's it for Sandpoint. Any questions about Sandpoint? Okay. I did go out and look at Bravo 4 the other day to see how our patch did on those big cracks, and that epoxy stuff is amazing. It's doing great. So that's fun to have that stuff around. I think it'll be handy for us to do in-house stuff for repairs. So, like that stuff, it's good. Priest River, we had an aircraft take out a light post, and we're struggling a little bit getting matching parts for that. Wade Burnett is working on that. And so I was hoping to tell you when that was going to happen, because I thought those parts were going to be here like now, but they're not here yet. So we will get that done as soon as we get the parts. I think this summer we should really focus on getting all the trees. I was looking at my map, our picture of Priest River Airport. That's, I don't know how old that is, the one that's up in our hangar, but it's all green trees. They're not green anymore. And we've got very damaged fence line in Priest River. So I think we should actively do that this summer, try and get that pushed through. Because otherwise we're gonna have voids. We've already got a bunch of damaged fence line, and to keep deer and stuff out of that airport, and so we don't have to pay for more fence line repairs, it'd be nice to do that this summer. And fire hazard for the local people.
Is that damage from tree branches and stuff falling on the fence?
Trees. Yeah, it's pretty bad. David was going over there last couple of weeks ago, and I had him kind of peek down there to look at it, so he could see how bad it is down there. Oh, yeah,
Are those in-house people that follow trees, or is it a subcontractor you're getting?
It would be farmed out. Yeah, it's a big project. Okay. We did all the ones behind the hangars, and that was fine. But yeah, it's way too much. And getting rid of the Priest River won't let us burn inside the city limits anymore. So yeah, we're not.
You don't know the mayor or anything like that on that?
I don't know anybody over there that has any pull, but maybe
So these trees are on the inside or outside of the fence?
Yes,
Okay. Do we have access?
that's
to
the problem,
Outside of the
Jim.
fence?
Yeah, it's our property.
They were originally on the outside and now they're on the fence.
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of them that are, yeah, just about every time we go over there, we have to pull them off the fence line. So,
So on the west fence line, for those of you that don't know this about Priest River Airport, on the west fence line, north of the tie-down apron, we own two pie-shaped parcels that extend between 200 and 500 feet west of that fence line. And one of those parcels, the one closest to the apron, is being developed under a grant from the FAA, which will allow us to put in more hangar spaces and more leasable lots. Some of the trees that Dale's talking about are in that section of property, and they'll be removed this spring when the contractor goes in there to start doing the grading and surfacing of the taxiways. North of that, on the west side of the airport, there's I think it's a 12-acre parcel that we own, big triangle, and it's treed. And as you see a lot of different places around the county, a lot of those trees are dying. And when we have the winds that we've had recently and in a couple past years, some of those trees get blown over into the fence. So what we're contemplating there is to actually have that parcel cruised by, we have some timber cruisers with the county, and then potentially put that out to be bid for removal or at least thinning of the trees there and kind of managing that property. So in the future, at some point, we'll take away the immediate hazard of trees falling and dying and falling, and then we'll, in the future, have the ability to manage the rest of that for future development. If you look at the airport master plan for Priest River, all that's laid out in there, and it's pretty cool.
and we did put a used radio in the pilot lounge, and we got that dialed in. We had to change its power supply a little bit, but it's online and working good over there now.
And transmit and receive
Yes,
both?
yeah. And we were having some electrical issues in that hangar, those open hangars. We got it figured out. It was just, there was too much stuff with our equipment being in there and the engine block heaters and stuff. And then when a pilot would plug in their aircraft heater, it would trip the breaker. And so we got it figured out. It looks like it's all right now. So, any questions about Priest River? Joe?
No, nice, thank you.
How's the snow removal going at Priest River?
Pretty good so far. The burns
Awesome.
are pretty minimal.
Good, good,
That's all I got.
okay.
So, you got a couple of trucks over there now, and they're inside the building, or what do you got over there?
Yeah, we got our 546 unit. It's a small single drive truck. And then we've got that big Mack that's getting pretty tired. I got a plan for that too. We'll see how that goes in the future, but eventually we got to get rid of that Mack. Its frame is just about rotted in half. So, but it works good for the runway.
And that's parked over there, yeah.
My challenge over there, and we got the tractor over there too. My challenge for Priest River is the new hangars is getting that snow pushed all the way down and boxing it and getting it out of there and stuff, so.
You'll probably end up blocking that exit, that road with the entrance.
I don't want to,
Yeah.
because if that, like I've pointed out before, if our main gate does not operate because of power or something like that, I want to keep that that 57, Highway 57 gate open.
Is there enough space to turn around the corner and go past Tom's, the back of Tom's?
Yeah, that's where I've been putting the snow, is kind of off both sides down there. So it's just something we'll have to stay on. Fire lane, yeah.
Oh, thinking about the fire lane, yeah.
But I think it'd be a good idea to pave that eventually and work on that exit over there. And so we have two ways. The gate at Sandpoint, I love that thing because it's 12 volt. So it's got a trickle charge. So if the power goes out, at least it will still operate. That one there, it's done if the power goes out.
Any other questions for Dale at either airport? Dale mentioned it briefly, and we've talked about it a little bit in the past. I think we didn't actually acquire the trailer until early in this fiscal year. But we do have now a 3-axle equipment trailer that we can move any and all of our equipment between Priest River and Sandpoint, including the loaders and including the tractor with the mower deck on it, which is about that long, and which was the biggest challenge. We were borrowing trailers from Road and Bridge, but they were barely long enough to accommodate the equipment that we were trying to move back and forth. So we were able to move some money around in our budget and acquire that trailer, which will be a huge asset for us, and it just increases our flexibility and our response time to moving something back and forth, where we had to maybe wait or schedule a trailer in the past. Now we have one, we can do it whenever we have the need. So that's really good, really beneficial.
And it works way better and it's way safer than the trailer we were borrowing from the county, because ours is actually designed for that weight of the loader and stuff. The other one wasn't.
Not that we were doing anything unsafe in the past.
No, it's just way safer.
More better safe. Okay. Airport manager. Probably the biggest thing that happened between the last meeting and this meeting is at the end of the year and the beginning of the new year is when we apply for grants from the FAA. And we did apply for 4 grants, and the commissioners signed those applications. So they'll be going into our engineering services and forwarded onto the FAA. The grants are for 3 projects. One of the grants has 2 funding sources within the FAA. That's why there's 4 grants for 3 projects. The project at Priest River is the ALP update and the Aegis survey. And the Aegis survey and ALP update will identify obstructions at each end of the runway that will allow us to decide what we should do with the length of the runway, with displaced thresholds, with lighting situations, with any changes from a safety standpoint that we need to make in order to have that airport be as safe and accessible as possible. So that's what's happening at Priest. At Sandpoint, we have 2 grants, or 2 projects, 3 grants, 2 projects. One is land and easement acquisition, primarily around the south end of the airport, where as you guys fly into runway 2, you notice that you kind of fly between 2 stands of trees as you come in, and we'll be able to acquire, theoretically, the land on the east side that has those trees and be able to remove those trees. And we actually own the land on the west side of that approach. And the other project is an obstruction removal project, so we can take those trees out this year as well. So the approach into runway 2 will be much less encumbered than it is now in the near future, assuming that we can get the land acquisition to go the way it needs to. With the FAA, we have a relatively short window to negotiate. We need to have the purchase and sale agreements in place with the FAA June 6th. So as land negotiations go, that's a very short window to get that done, because we have to do appraisals, review appraisals, negotiations with the seller, and then come to an agreement and purchase and sale agreements. So it'll be a busy time over the next few months to get that done. Yeah. The obstruction removal should happen without concern, and obstruction removal is on both ends of the runway. There are trees on the north end, kind of on that steep slope just south of the roundabout, that grow up basically right into the path, the approach path into runway 20. And we'll be able to remove those. We acquired an easement over that land, that's city-owned land, 3 years ago, and we're now in a position where we can actually apply the restrictions in that easement, which allows us to cut those trees off. There's also a couple down in the swale down alongside, or down in the creek bed, a couple of tall cottonwoods down there that will eventually grow up, and we're going to talk with the city about having those removed as well. We bought an easement over that property as well, so we have the right to do it. It's just a matter of how we manage the removal of those trees, because the ones alongside the road will probably require traffic management on Boyer while they're coming down. And then anytime, at least in Sandpoint, you take down trees, the public needs to be aware of it. and notified and allowed to speak to it. Because
To
it's,
the trees or?
yes, speak to the trees, sometimes hug them, sometimes chain themselves to them. But be involved in the process so that there's no surprises and everybody understands that this is a safety concern, not an aesthetic concern. And I think those are the main issues on the report. Any questions for the report manager? Okay. Going to number 5, new leases and RFP. As you know, we did put out an RFP process for a lessee for lot 32, and we have that as an action item down in new business to go through that. The way I want to do this is we will I sent scorecards to all the advisory board members to rate based on 7 different criteria the proposals that were provided. And we want to discuss that rating and make sure that the process worked well enough for this lot to make a decision and make a recommendation to the commissioners about who we should lease to.
Okay, before we get into that, I'm just gonna give you this letter I told you about.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you wanna speak to that appeal, I think that's what it is.
Okay.
Or what, he said he has not received a reply, so he didn't know what the response is on the appeal.
Okay, we can talk to that when I get to that down in the new business. Right now, we're just going to go through the RFP process and what we would like to accomplish here today. So ideally, we'll go through the scoring matrix to give us a numerical value for an objective viewpoint. Then we have representatives of both proposals here, 1 in person and 2 online. And we can ask questions of them, or they can speak to their proposals if they choose. And then we can make a decision on whether or not to award the lease to one of these 2 proposers. And then I would like to discuss ways that we can improve the RFP itself. A, was it sufficient to the task to do what we wanted it to do? And B, what improvements should we do to it in order to lease the next lot, which is lot 33, right next to lot 32. And I would like to release that RFP directly after this meeting, in a week or so of this meeting, and then consider responses to that RFP at our April meeting. That gives the respondents enough time to do any engineering research or architectural research or financial research that they need to in order to respond. We'd like to give 45 to 60 days to the proposers to come up with their proposal. And then when we get them, as we did this time, they'll be reviewed for meeting the submission criteria, and then meeting if there's criteria involved in the submission itself that would need to be addressed. And so then if there is not any violations or problems with the submission, then I can do the same thing we did this time, send the submissions to the selection committee with the scoring matrix, and we'll go through the whole process again. I know I did receive some questions from some of you about the numerical criteria and how we utilize that, and we can have that discussion when we look at how do we improve the process after the recommendation to the commissioners. As I mentioned in one of the emails I sent to you guys, we are not required to make a recommendation to the commissioners from this RFP process. If we don't like either of the submissions, or we think that there may be something else out there that would be better for us, we don't have to make a recommendation at this meeting. I think we received some very good submissions, and I'd like to keep the process moving with some adjustments if necessary for the next lot. And ultimately, we will have, I forget how many there were, but there were about, I believe, 10 or maybe 13 separate lots once we develop, at Sandpoint, once we develop the industrial way property. So we would like to have this thing pretty well sorted out by the time we get into that process. Our hope was to be able to develop that land or start the development of that land yet this year, but we were unable to come up with the funds needed to do the survey work, to define the legal description, define the lots and get legal descriptions for them, which we're estimating at about $40,000. However, the the winter has been so light that we're saving a lot of money in fuel and maintenance costs that we may actually be able to fund that towards the end of the summer and get that survey work done so that we could then have the next building cycle in 2026 to start developing that area. So that would be great. Any questions?
Dave, do we only have 2 applicants for this one lot 32?
We had 3 applications. One of the applications did not meet the submission criteria, so it could not be considered by the.
Do we have any
selection
idea
committee.
for number 33?
We haven't released it, so we don't know.
Don't even know, okay. Okay.
Dave, when did you guys come up with that criteria that you're using?
Over the last year, I think we talked about it at 3 different advisory board meetings.
Yeah. That shows how much knowledge I have. I was like, oh, wow. Anyway, apologize for not being here.
No, you're a busy guy, we understand.
Didn't take much to keep me busy at my age.
It's true. Any other comments about leases or RFP? Okay. FAA and through defense matters. No real update there. We have, in talking with our attorneys, the challenge we have is that the county granted perpetual property rights, vested property rights to property adjacent to the airport. That's in conflict with the policies of the FAA. And so the FAA wants us to remedy that. And one of the ways that they have talked about remedying that is with a through the fence agreement. And what we've been talking about for, it seems like a decade at least, is how we protect the private property rights that were granted by the county to the adjacent property owners and comply with the FAA requirements, policy and philosophy. And it is a significant challenge. We've talked with our attorneys for years about how to do this, and we think we came up with an idea that I want to present to the commissioners here, probably after the April advisory board meeting, or in that time frame, because we have 2 new commissioners on board this year, and they're kind of drinking from the fire hose about how to understand what happens not only at airports but in the county. And I don't want to throw a grenade like this into their laps right now. I'd like to get them just a little bit more comfortable and then throw a grenade in their lap. So sometime March, April, I think we're going to, with our attorneys, put together a proposal for the commissioners about how we can resolve the ongoing conflicts between personal property rights and FAA policy and procedure. And you guys will know about it when we do it, but it involves some legal wrangling, so it'll probably be some executive session first. Not of this board, but of the county commissioners. Questions on that? Nope.
You didn't get it done this time?
Yeah,
It was a major topic when I was.
yeah, like I said, I've been dealing with this since 2012, trying to figure out a way to do it.
Good luck, I hope.
Thank you. Need all the luck I can get.
Anybody can, Dave will.
Well, yeah. We said 10 years ago.
Yeah, they've been waiting patiently. Engineers reports. Corey, would you like to go first, please?
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm Corey Sigford and with Ardura with the report for the Priest River Airport. First up is the taxi lane and apron project. That project has been funded by the FAA. It was funded late in the fall, and so we are planning to begin construction. The tentative notice to proceed date is March 17th, depending upon how the remainder of this winter goes. We won't get them going if the ground is still frozen or if there's any snow in mid-March. We would just push it off until the conditions look better. There is a water line extension that we've been talking about with the FAA, and it was accepted for AIP funding to get the water line run through that taxi lane area where the future hangars will be. We submitted a proposal, Ardura did, to do the engineering services so that we could get the plans and specs submitted to DEQ so that we can include that as a part of the contractor's work this spring. The construction project will be completed by J7 Contracting, and they have 50 calendar days to do the work. So depending upon when we issue the notice to proceed, that's when you'll see it being constructed and then hopefully completed by the middle of May is what I'm hoping, but we'll see how it goes. And then one thing of note is that there will be a 5-day runway closure, probably towards the beginning of the project, to excavate out some swales in the runway safety area between the expanded apron, where we're expanding the apron to the north, and the runway. Just be aware of NOTAMs and on the lookout when that runway closure will be. And the next project is the Aegis and ALP update project. Since the last meeting, can you still hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, you're breaking up a little bit.
Okay, maybe I need to get closer. Since the last meeting, the draft inventory chapter was approved by the FAA with some comments. We revised that and resubmitted it in the middle of November. Bonner County just submitted the grant application for phase 2. Dave just mentioned that, and it was submitted to the FAA on January 21st. And then next steps are to complete the airspace analysis for the approaches, and then the threshold sighting analysis. And then the next step for the ALP part is to get the forecast section into the FAA and the development section of the ALP update. That is all I had for you.
Okay, thank you.
Did we get a drawing on that? Like the route of that water line that's going to be run for those priests? Is it in front of the hangars or behind them, along the property line with the fire department? You know?
She's not talking about the water line near your hangar. She's talking
Okay.
about the water line behind the apron and the shelters.
Okay. Pardon me.
And where the new development is going on the west side of that property line, we're going to run a water line from essentially
That hydrant,
the hydrant that's just north of the northernmost hangar.
mine.
And it'll go up at a diagonal to, is that Hickory Street that we're going to hook up to?
Doesn't it go back to the fire department first and then along that road?
No, it's in,
So they're going to bore underneath the already existing.
So you're
line.
talking about two different ones.
Right.
This one has a fire hydrant it's already on the property where the double wide used to be, basically right behind that.
North of all the
And-
structures, Joe.
Got it.
And it'll be just extended over to the road that comes in off of 57.
Got it. Okay.
The city's participating into a point because it'll interconnect our system.
Okay.
The idea is it'll be behind and to the ITD fence, basically.
Right.
The ITD property. Well, that all used to be ITD property, but to the fence line that's there now.
Okay.
There's a sewer line that's already there that was done in a, conjunction with ITD County and the city way back when to get that piece of our property to the county.
Is it looping then?
yeah,
It would loop it.
it's for fire suppression, or fire
That's the
protection.
whole idea, is to connect it to another 8-inch on the other side so that we get dual pressures.
And just to be a little bit clear, because I said there was only one project at Priest, there's two going on. There's only one new grant. The grant for the taxiway and apron was from last year, but it wasn't awarded until fall. And so it'll carry into this calendar year. And then the ones who grant we just applied for it will go through this calendar year as well. We often have concurrent and consecutive grants at both airports, projects working at both airports. Any other questions about Priest? Trey, if you could speak to Sandpoint, please.
Okay, be pretty quick here. No ongoing work at Sandpoint, at least from my firm's perspective, but we're looking to kick off and complete the projects that Dave already alluded to, the obstruction removal and the land acquisition services later this year. So those will start here in the near future, hopefully.
That was quick.
Dave wasn't ready for that.
Any questions? No questions. Okay, action items, discussion, decision, recommendation. Old business, we have none. New business, Lot 32 Sandpoint RFP discussion. So I'll start this with, we received 3 submissions, and one of the submissions did not meet the submission criteria, and so it could not be considered by the selection committee. And this envelope that Bob gave me is from,
Johnny Smith.
who was not one of the applicants. The applicant in the submission was 7B Aviation and a
I
woman.
think it's under that name, yeah. He was
Okay.
part of that group.
Okay,
This is an objection to not qualifying, is that what that's?
I haven't read it yet.
Oh. Hurry.
I don't know.
What were the reasons it wasn't allowed?
One of the criteria was to have the submission date on the external envelope in the submission. Had the submission, you had to have who it was going to, us, the name of the RFP and the submission date deadline. And this submission did not have the submission date deadline, the due date.
January 8th.
Sorry?
Just because of the date, it wasn't allowed?
No, because the date was not noted on the exterior of the envelope.
Oh, okay. So it might not have been,
It was before the deadline,
okay.
but one of the criteria was that it had to have the date noted on the envelope.
Ouch.
So, trust me, I had some angst about that. So I talked with our legal representation, and he said, is that a requirement of the submission in the RFP? And I said, yes, it is. It's noted in 2 different places in the RFP that has to be on the exterior of the submission envelope. And in fact, if you send the submission in via FedEx or UPS, the submission has to be in its own envelope, and all that information needs to be noted on it. And that was noted in 2 separate places in the RFP, and the other 2 submissions complied with that. So what legal told me is, you're not the guy who can decide which criteria you're going to honor and which you're not. If they didn't do it,
That's true.
they're not able to be considered. And in thinking about it and in talking with legal about it, if no one had done it, for instance, if the requirement was either overlooked or hard to interpret or understand, then you could say, okay, that one didn't count against anybody because nobody got it. But since 2 of the 3 did get it and did comply, if we don't exclude the one, the other 2 have the opportunity to appeal or to argue that inclusion. It is unfortunate. This letter just opened in front of this audience. Says, January 17th, 2025, Dave Shook, Airport Manager, Suite 338, 1500 Highway 2, Sandpoint, Idaho 83864. RFP for lease of Lot 32 at Sandpoint Airport. Dear Mr. Shook, 7B Aviation would like to respectfully and formally appeal the airport board's rejection of our lot proposal based on inconsistency and confusion created by the text content of the RFP. There are at least 2 conflicting RFP submission requirements. Paragraph 13 of the additional information section specifies both due date and time are required, but due time is not specified by the RFP. Therefore, no proposer could have been compliant with this requirement, thus making all proposals technically non-respondent. Number 2, an RFP number is required on the submission envelope, but no such number appears in the RFP, creating an additional cause of non-respondent submissions. The RFP's submission instructions section states that proposals may be submitted via email, but also indicated it required a hard copy envelope. To be safe, we submitted a hard copy version with a USB digital copy. The RFP offered 2 conflicting addresses for hard copy delivery. The submittal instruction section says delivered to the county building on Highway 2, whereas Section 7 proposal submission deadline specifies delivery to your airport office on Airport Way. Again, in hopes of avoiding rejection based on this address discrepancy, we contacted you personally and were instructed to place our proposal under your office door at Airport Way address. Perhaps if we had delivered it by hand at the Highway 2 address, the due date time issue could have been remedied. Additionally, RFP Section 8 selection process states that shortlisters will do a presentation before final determination. We had prepared a PowerPoint presentation for that purpose and intended to provide at that time more details regarding our proposed hangar construction. After we submitted our proposal, we were notified that such a presentation would not occur. To go beyond what was requested, additional information was printed to a hard copy and presented to the Airport Way address as a supplement to our proposal. Our proposal cover letter clearly identified the RFP and was dated with our submission date, which is the same as the due date. Lastly, the RFP did not specify who must write the date on the envelope. In the image you sent, the RFP due date is clearly written on our proposal envelope. Given all these issues, we in good faith request that the board in good faith reconsider its decision and declare our submission to be responded. This is Ariel Grace Smith, John Smith, Larimore Cummins, and Skylar Smith, who are all listed as principals of, Ariel Grace Smith is listed as managing member. John Smith, Larimore Cummins, and Skylar Smith are listed as principals to 7B Aviation LLC. I can speak to a couple things, and we can decide what we want to do with the appeal. In the note where he says, lastly, the RFP did not specify who must write the date, she says, on the envelope. In the image you sent, the RFP due date is clearly written on our proposal envelope. What I wrote on the proposal envelope and signed was my reception of the envelope. So that's the date that is shown in the image that I sent to them. On the envelopes, I write when I have received it, as is common practice for any of the RFPs that the county brings, or any bid that the county brings in. So I wrote that on the envelope and signed it in my own hand, and it's clearly in a different pen and a different ink and my signature on the date. So I think that you say that the date was on there is inaccurate. The one other note that Ariel says, if we had been able to hand it to you directly as opposed to putting it under your door, we may have been able to remedy the date time issue. Had I noticed the date time issue on the exterior of the envelope, I wouldn't be able to tell them what they need to do in order to meet the submission criteria. I feel that would be outside that would be giving information or advantage to one party that the other parties did not have. So even if I noted it, I wouldn't have been able to tell them, oh yeah, you need to put the due date on here. It's part of the criteria.
So we don't have any pre-submittal check. I'm going to turn this in for submittal. Does this look good to you? Yeah, this will be fine when okay, none of that.
No. And as far as an appeal goes, there is not an appeal process to this process. In a formal RFP, there probably is an appeals process. And this is basically, we're asking for attempting to use a numerical criteria that is objective rather than subjective, so that we can grade proposals against each other. The best way to do that is to set up that criteria and then in an RFP and put it out to the public in an RFP. So in one section of the RFP, I think it's in the additional information on item number 4, the county has in its sole discretion the right to accept or reject any submission for any reason or no reason at all. Pretty standard language in those sort of things that, yes, we are soliciting bids, but we don't have to accept them, even if one of them is lower than the other ones. It's only in the county's sole discretion that we accept any of these. It's basically, how can we understand what the availability and qualifications of the people out there are providing us with. No obligation to do anything with that information. We could say, no, that was fun, nice exercise. Next. That is within our discretion. Is that right and fair? I would prefer to use this process to come up with a somewhat more objective way to determine who we are dealing with in our leases. And that's the reason for going through this. So are there challenges to this in the challenges that they state in the letter? I guess it's interpretation. This board went through the RFP at 2 different meetings. We had legal to go through the RFP. I've been staring at it for 1.5 years because I gleaned it from another airport and used a lot of their criteria. I'm not sure how to respond to that.
Well, I'm sorry, were you going to?
No, go ahead.
Had the county attorney who gave you the advice that if it doesn't fit the RFP, then it can be denied. Has he had an opportunity to see this appeal letter during that discussion?
No, I just opened this appeal letter.
Okay, so
here.
there isn't a previous appeal letter?
No.
This is it, okay.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, would it be advisable to have him confirm what he told you based on the letter and comparing it to the RFP? That's my question.
Certainly, we could decide not to make a decision here, and we could send this letter to the county attorney for counsel and to let us know what his thoughts are. I'm not an attorney and I don't want to even play one on TV, but I believe the item 4 that says the county can do basically whatever they want with the outcome of this process allows us the latitude to do whatever we want with the outcome of this process. There is not a formal appeals process. There doesn't need to be a formal appeals process. It's just a matter of how we feel about somebody's submission and whether we feel that the criteria were too strict or too vague or too anything in order to make a decision about what we want to do.
So here's my thoughts on it. At the end of the day, we're here as an advisory board, right? We're here for the betterment of the airport. That is our goal. So we should be looking at all proposals, even if the date was wrong. I have attorneys have their purpose and they've got their place to protect us, but at the end of the day, sometimes they don't know what the hell they're talking about. And I think this is probably one of those situations where, one date when an airport user took the time to go and put together the proposal, they obviously care. They obviously love aviation. They love the airport, as far as I can tell. And for an attorney to sit there and say, oh, well, we shouldn't put it because of a date, when it was in on time and all that sort of stuff, my gut tells me that, it just doesn't sit right. It doesn't feel right. If it doesn't feel right, it's probably not right. That's my gut on this. So what I would propose, and I'm obviously just one of 5, but what I would propose would be of 7, would be to put, let's do maybe a special meeting in a month, just for this process. And if you guys, if everybody else wants to allow it, or if the county commissioners want to allow it, and have them submit the proposal. I just think it's for the betterment of the airport, and that's what we're here for.
Okay, I'll add a little bit to my idea of it. So you do have the other envelopes that the others were submitted in?
Yeah.
Because it might be a good idea that if you're going to have the attorney look at that letter, that you have them look at everything to make sure that, you know, that it all lines up perfectly, because I think that becomes more important as we're holding to these high of standards, then you better have all your ducks in a row, not just that one. Because I tend to wonder if it seemed like when the commissioners did it, it was stamped when it was brought in and stuff like that. And I don't recall anything like that wording. Not that that means that it has to be. It's what you came up with. It's not, you know, you're trying to set out goals and rules, and you know, if they're not followed, then I guess. But again, we're just an advisory. I wonder at some point if the commissioners would also agree, because, you know, that might be their decision to put that in or out.
So the dates, so there's two dates on the exterior of the envelope. One is, it was a requirement in the RFP to have the due date on it, by the submitter on the envelope. And then what I think you're referring to is when we receive that, whether it's the commissioner's office here or myself, you write down when you received it, so that or stamp when you receive it, so that you can show anybody that, yes, this what did come in before the deadline. And that's what I wrote on the envelope, that I received this, it says received, my date, my signature.
Right.
I did that on the envelope.
So that they met that.
Right. So that, yes, it was inside or before the deadline due date. The fact that the due date wasn't written on the exterior of the envelope is one of the criteria, and again, back to what, and I understand your point. And since we create the criteria, we can adjust the criteria. I can't, as an individual, say, hey, no, listen, if you do this, you'll have a better chance of getting your submittal in. That's exactly what we don't want to do.
Right.
And I can't say, well, I don't think that was that important, really. So if this group decides that, as Andy's suggesting, that we can waive that requirement in order to consider 50% more proposals, another proposal, a third proposal, we can certainly do that. And we can set a special advisory board meeting, and we can basically, I still have the submittal, I can forward that submittal, respond to Ms. Smith and say, yes, we read your appeal, we will use your submittal as it was received prior to the deadline. We don't want any changes by any of the proposers now, because we're not offering that to any of the other submitters. So we can examine that, and if this group feels that that is more fair or more in keeping with the potential to increase the benefit to the airport, then we can do that.
Yeah,
I don't think that there is a legal issue with that, since the criteria is not defined by the state code, which is what legal said. Go look at state code, see what they say. Since you're using the process, follow it as closely as you can for a regular RFP, even though this is not a procurement. So we did that. And I'm confident that we can, in the latitude that we have, we can adjust criteria if we, as the board, agree to that. And then we can, like I said, set another meeting in a month or whatever, and consider that, all three proposals against each other. Scare him?
Anyway, you just whacked the one in S and then walked out of the room.
Your rides here.
Yeah, I mean, I would tend to agree that for such and some people might not see it as a minor detail, I do. And to make sure we're maintaining the fairness and equity, I think it's such a minor issue that we should revisit this opportunity for this other person. And if the matrix still says that whoever
Right.
works, that's where we're gonna go with the matrix. because that's the fairest and most objective way to have equity in this process. And again, like Andy said, that we want to do what's best for the whole airport, you know, and so anyway, I would say that we should either revisit it or at the very least have the attorney look at that, making sure that if this one person missed something, is there anything else in the other proposals, RFPs, that missed? And I don't know if anybody's looked at that in detail.
I did.
You did, okay.
They all had to meet the submission criteria prior to me sending them to you. So the guidelines, like they all had to have a cover letter that was signed by a principal. They all had to have addressing each of the 7 criteria that they're being judged on, and they all had to have an explanation of the financial value of their project, and they all had to have plans or some idea, not necessarily engineer plans, but an idea of what the visual representation of what the project would look like. And they all had that. So in my review, yeah, they all did meet the criteria except for that one.
If we were to, my only concern with pushing it back to the next meeting is that as building goes, these processes take a while to get permits and do all that. And if you want to break ground, say May, June, you got to start now. And that's pushing it. That's my only reason why I said maybe not push it. Maybe not push it to the next meeting, but let's give it 30 days.
No, I think we should have a special meeting.
Special meeting, yeah.
Because it won't take long. I mean, if what we're going to do is say, if we agree that that one submission criteria is not that important, and we have, that includes another submission, then I can send that to you guys with the scoring matrix again. You have a week or 2 or whatever you guys feel you need. Some need longer.
You need to make a motion on this then?
Then
We're
getting to that. We're in discussion at the moment.
Okay, sorry.
And then we can set another meeting in 2 weeks or 3 weeks to review all 3 submissions. And I agree with Andy, time isn't necessarily of the essence, but if you want to do something, get ground prep going this year, now is the time to do this. And I wouldn't want to wait till the April meeting. I would like to get this one behind us, make any adjustments to the RFP process we need to, and get Lot 33 out there as well. And then, yeah,
Doors. You gotta order doors now if you want.
if you want them this summer, yeah.
August.
Yeah,
And then you'll be like,
There's only one, that's the biggest thing.
Only if you want doors.
it's true. It's true. Thank you. We're still talking once, but Gavin, we see you, and I'll get you in here in a moment.
From the time you emailed this to us until we had to have it back into you, it was less than a week, was it not?
Friday to Friday.
Friday to Friday, 1 week. So it would be reasonable if you were going to do it again, that 1 week should be sufficient time.
Well, I
that's your voice.
got 3 of them back in by Friday.
Was a decision made, just, on the side, was a decision made? Was it solid, a selection made?
A selection has not been made.
Okay,
That's what this is for.
okay.
So the only thing that I'll bring up, and I'm kind of trying to play both sides of this, is that I don't think it's an issue until the other 2 lose and that one wins. And then they'll be like, hey, wait a minute, this is what you said in your RFP, so what are we doing here?
I agree. That's why.
I think you're really close to setting yourself up for a real issue.
I agree with you exactly what you're saying. There's no doubt, but if it was late, right? If they didn't meet all of the criteria as far as setting all those things go, but we're literally talking about a single date on a cover letter.
Yeah, but there are 4 submission criteria, each with equal weight.
Yeah,
And that 2 of
So
the
you
3
can't-
submittals did correctly?
Did it correctly.
you're just talking about the date it was going to, the date it was submitted, right? Or the date it was due.
It was supposed to have the due date on it.
And the RFP number, right?
So, or the RFP name, which is what they did.
The due date of the RFP was not put on the letter.
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make sure I got that right.
It's true.
And 2 of the 3 submittals did it properly. I don't know about you, but I've been bumped from something because of a ticky-tacky little.
How'd you feel about it?
Oh, it was terrible. I'll tell you what, I didn't do that again.
That's right.
Well, and I've talked with other people that do RFPs, and the criteria is the criteria.
Yeah.
If you start varying from that, then you're basically, you might as well just do it, this guy's next on the list, let him do it. I mean, you basically
understand.
destroy the data portion of it.
Portion
So-
of integrity.
Yeah, so it's like, I thought the same way that everybody here feels. It's like, oh, man, a minor detail that really doesn't have a lot of effect on the whole outcome, but it is one of the requirements. And that's why I talked to the lawyer. I said, what do I do here? He said, well, you need to follow Idaho code. I can't decide.
On submittal for number 33.
I can't decide which criteria. Once we've decided on the process and sent that out, I, as a person, can't decide which criteria mean something and which don't. And to my point earlier, and Jeff's and Joe's point, two of the submittals did comply and did meet the requirement in every aspect. One didn't in one aspect. What do we do for those guys that were compliant? Gavin, I'll jump to you right now. Thank you.
That's Chris.
Glad to see you guys. Sorry I was a little bit late
Yeah.
getting in. I meant to be there, but we had an incident out at Renco Loop. So I just want to say we go through these RFPs constantly in the municipality, in the previous lives, things like that. RFPs are basically designed to do exactly what you just mentioned, and that is catch the attention to detail. I would have a big problem allowing somebody to come in that didn't meet all the criteria for submission. I mean, yeah, it's unfortunate. And yes, I would love to see the airport do great things. Does it leave a bad taste in their mouth? Yeah, it probably would. But I can't see how you can do, how we could sit here and say, yeah, well, we could let that slide and come back in a month. Just to kind of piggyback on what Mr. Conley just said was, I believe that if we do that, it's not the fact that we don't want to do it. It's going to be the fact of the two submittals that did do everything correctly. What's going to happen if the tables get turned and then all of a sudden they're out of it because this one that we allowed in, makes the grade. So I can't really see. I think it'll be a tough sell, right? To come around that. I think we kind of talked ourselves around in a loop here, but I think it's going to be tough. That's all I wanted to mention.
Thanks, Gavin.
Yeah, I think that we all agree that we'd love to just look the other way and have this happen like it didn't happen. But, I don't know, I guess being in the government for so long and watching and being challenged at every choice you made, it's real important to follow the rule book.
Is there a possibility of an easy solution of the other two applicants signing off on that? Because then they can't come back on us later. Is that a possibility, a simple solution?
Ask them then if they want another competitor.
I asked the other two that submitted it all properly, if they have any objection with them allowing it. Does that resolve, that takes the county out of it, right?
I like the fairness of that idea, but then you open yourself up, and that's the problem with setting a precedent like this, is then you have to let the submitters question every criteria and say, well, what about this? What about that?
So just
And I think, I think it opens a door that we don't want to open. I think we have to the county has to set the criteria and abide by the criteria. Now, again, since this isn't an RFP for procurement with large contracts at stake, there is a large investment at stake, but it's not like a bid contract that you're arguing against, for a $10 million freeway or highway or whatever.
Dave, can I ask one
Go
question?
ahead, please.
Is there this is really a request for qualification, not really a request for proposal as we discussed. So does that vary the thought process on this? This is just qualifying people.
It's not even doing
I
that.
guess
We're
it's
strictly,
I guess
we're
It's
strictly
also a
advisory.
submittal of proposal, though, too.
Well, kind of. I mean, it kind of is.
You're judging them on a proposal they're making of what they're going to do and how it's going to be done. Because you're even asking them, well, what about if you're doing more than that, if you're expanding on that, and if you're making it nicer? That's not qualifications, that's proposal. That's talking about defining what you're saying over that.
Why I'm
person.
better than that guy. Right.
I am better because I'm going to do these things. I'm sorry, but that's just where I come from.
No,
I bid on a lot of stuff. And it comes down to all that kind of goofy stuff that it's like.
it did. Early today, I was talking with one of the commissioners who, in a previous life, had done large municipal projects back east, 10 million to 100 million. And they lived and died by the RFP process. And he said many, many, many times, a submitter missed one of the submission criteria, and they could not be considered for selection. Could not be
Even if
considered
they
for
were the
selection.
best.
And then many times they would look at it and go, oh, damn it, we really wish we could have taken that one because we would have loved to work with that. They're great, but they didn't meet the criteria. So I understand, guys, I've been going through this for the last 10 days, ever since I received it, well, actually more than that, ever since I received it. And it's like, I've gone round and round, the same discussion we're having here. I think it's very difficult for the submitter. The only thing I would say is that.
Right there.
Yeah.
Read that.
Yeah.
What does that say?
Request for proposal.
That's correct.
So I think I don't know if our hands are legally tied, but I think they're morally tied. And that's, to me, more important than legally tied, to tell you the truth. It's unfortunate, it's very unfortunate. But like I said, this happens, we've had it happen, you've had it happen, you've had it happen, it happens. If there's a typo and it's the wrong submittal number, sorry, it's a typo.
I don't think we really have an option for a deviation from what's required. Sorry. May there be another lot come up soon?
There are other lots coming up soon. If we continue to use this process and we agree that, yes, we need to go forward and maybe tune it a little bit. Or if we feel like it, we can relax the requirement in the next one. You don't have to have the due date on there. There are things that we can do. I don't think we can adjust this one. We can adjust the format for the next one. And that's one of the things that we wanted to do with this one was test drive it and see if there were fatal flaws and then adjust if we need to. So
We're a great big fan.
yeah. If we feel like, I think we all feel the same way about that submittal. It's extremely unfortunate. However, it is a fact of life in the RFP world. In fact, Trey, I bet you could speak to this. You've probably done RFPs and RFQs in the past.
He says, I'm not touching that.
Good. Speak to it, but,
You're smarter than that?
yes.
Can't make me.
I think we create a bigger can of worms if we deviate than if we accept it for this one. And we can adjust the next one, however we see fit. How does that taste?
Have to.
Everybody
I agree with that.
I'm all right, but I didn't pass the test, so.
Okay, what I can do is respond to this applicant that we did essentially the appeals process here and examine it, and we feel we need to stand by the submission criteria as it was defined in the RFP. There will be more lots coming up, and better luck next time. Words to that effect. Everybody agree with that?
I do. I'm not sure those two do. Well,
I think it's a-
I respect.
I understand.
I respect
understand
that.
it. Yeah, I understand it.
Oh, it's terrible. It's terrible, but
Okay. So. I don't even know if I'm going to consider this one. So, I don't know if you, however many of you printed out the RFPs, looks like some of you did. I have copies if you didn't.
Of the submission?
The submissions, yeah, sorry.
got it,
The
yeah.
submissions.
I got it here.
Everybody got it? Okay. And what I did with those of you who responded,
You gotta throw that out.
oh, did you not?
I entered you into a comparison matrix, your response into a comparison matrix, and I then averaged the scores so that you can do a comparison of the scores. Bob, that doesn't take into consideration your later
Yep,
submission.
Okay,
But I think you said your later thought didn't change your opinion.
pretty much, yeah.
Okay. So in this, what I'm going to hand you is two spreadsheets, one for each of the proposals. There is an average score at the total end on the left side, and you can compare those two scores. I made it blind, so nobody knows who voted what on what.
There you go, sir.
Oh, that you need both.
I need both.
In both.
Yeah.
Who doesn't have one?
We all have, do you have one?
I have one. Okay. So, we'll look at the comparisons, and then if we have questions for either of the submitters, we can ask that, or we'll also give the submitters an opportunity to speak to the board after we've looked at the scoring matrix for a little while. Any questions on what you see before you? Jim, would you like to speak to the board? Oh, and does anybody have any questions for the Woodward Buick proposal of Jim Woodward? Sound like it. Jim, would you like to speak to the board at all?
Oh, I would just probably say, Dave, that I appreciate the deliberation today and the thought process you would just work through with the bid process. And I'm a contractor myself, so I've seen that before. But in regards to the proposal, I believe I understand the intent of the Bonner County Development Board and Bonner County, and I hope we've demonstrated that we're intent on putting up a building that or looks the same as the intended use, and as end users, the applicants. I will make that clear that we intend to be there, and then that we are part of the general aviation community here, and intend to continue to be so.
Okay, thank you. Does the board have any questions for Mr. Dempsey as a representative for Fontaine?
For Fontaine?
Plenty.
So, you guys, when you submitted your proposal, it seemed like there was several different options. What do you guys want to do?
I'd like to work with the board. I just, looking at it, and we've done a few hangars, and I thought the best use of land actually would be to put 3 on there. You know, a higher density, a better use of property. So that's the only reason I brought it up.
Including lot 33. So,
Yeah,
or,
so looking at the bigger picture of it all, and reading the RFP, it says that this is looking at this avenue instead of having these listed, hey, I'll take the one after next, or I run into that on hangars as well all the time. No, keep me on top. No, either take it or leave it now, is what we're doing now. But anyway, and so first off, we'd be happy to build a hangar on lot 32. But looking at that and the ALP and just being familiar with the airport is, we did some right across the taxiway, some box hangars per Andy, and they were very efficient to build, so we could keep rents lower. We're not out to make a screaming killing on these things or whatever. We understand that there are guys that still need a place for $200 a month, but they're gone. Anyway, so we're trying to keep it affordable, and that being the fact, looking at it, I was like, man, it sure looked a lot better. It sure be a better use to have a triplex on these 2 than to have 2 separate hangars. And that's the only reason we did, and then Chris said, well, gosh, why don't we just throw that in there as an addendum to bring that, to light.
start over.
I pledge allegiance.
Yeah.
Anyway, so, we'd be happy to build on lot 32, or put 3 on lot 32 and 33, and maybe just work with the others too, and just show them our costs and sell them one or something. We're here for the betterment of the airport as well. If we're chosen, great. If not, we still wish it the best and do whatever we got to do to try to help around there. That's what we've tried to do for years.
I guess I have a question for you on end use or end user. The way I understand that would be, are you going to use it for your own use? Is that correct? That's
an interpretation of that.
Well, you're building it for your own use. That's what I see.
Well, sure. And I think,
No?
I think that,
This is why I didn't take the test.
he can speak
End
to
user.
it, and he can speak to it.
So he points, if the developer intends to be the end user of the facility,
Right.
then they will be awarded up to 20 points.
Right.
Yeah.
So what is the definition of end user?
In the past,
If the developer intends.
in the past, what we've seen is somebody leasing a lot to build and then just sell it. So it wasn't really an airport user. It was somebody that was coming in and, hey, I'm going to lease this lot. I'm going to sole purpose of building a hangar and selling it to anybody else, right? So we had issues at the airport with that in the past, where that person, it just wasn't really the world's best process for the airport. So I think the end user, seems to me where, like what you guys are saying, are they really going to be an end user, or is it going to be an airport end user, or is the person that's lease signing that lease going to be, it's just a speculative investor? You know what I mean? I think that's how I got it.
Right, so, case in point, my definition of end user in this context was not what Andy just said, not a developer who is gonna build just to sell. Because, so does Fontaine's qualify as end user? If they keep it, yes. And I can give you a prime example sitting right here. Andy has built probably a few $1 million worth of hangars at Sandpoint Airport.
Many, yes.
And for instance, the ones right across the way that Scott was mentioning, that I leased from Andy.
I think 25 to be.
I was the end
20 to
user.
25.
I mean, I wasn't the end user. I was the tenant. I was the occupier in the space. Andy was the end user. He built it to provide that capacity for the airport. So to me, in my opinion on this. The end user use was the same. If they're not selling it, building it and selling it, that's what I was trying to avoid. And for the same reason that Andy mentioned earlier, we've had problems with that in the past. And that, fundamentally, I don't think that's what we're trying to do. So even though for the county, it doesn't really matter, but I don't think that's really the best interest of the airport community.
There are also some situations, I could think of one in particular where some people can't afford to go through the whole process of all the development process. So someone will front the money and then it gets built and then they step in and buy it. I mean, I've seen that done successfully, and much needed. So
Yeah,
it's possible.
And that's a good point, because a lot of folks can't do the cost of the development.
Oh, boy.
Or have the knowledge, or the experience, or the connections to do the development itself, but they may have the financial wherewithal to buy and mortgage after it's constructed.
After it's done, something actually tangible to mortgage, yeah.
Right.
Yep.
We need to clarify the criteria then for future ones.
We may for the next time, but for
I
this
think
one.
you better, because in my opinion, if you look at the applicants, they looked at it different because they were explaining how they were gonna use it, and they felt that that meant end user. At least that's the way I see it.
I think-
You've got two different,
Yeah, the applicant did, I believe, hold on a second. However, the applicant's not scoring the submissions, we are. So what we think about that category is what matters.
Amen. They made their compelling argument.
They did make a compelling argument. And
Both
then
both
it-
sides did.
Then it's our opinion about how we scored it, so, go ahead, Scott.
So with some recent changes, I may be occupying it with others, though. I don't need all that space, but with some,
So, that's a maybe.
tell some airplanes and need some funds.
So that gets you a point. A maybe.
Whatever, it's already been made, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, it's,
It has.
yeah.
So, and this speaks to the whole RFP process as well, is saying I might do something, or there's a possibility of doing something, or I'm thinking about doing something, does not meet the criteria, or doesn't change the score in our eyes. If it's, I am guaranteeing this, I'm committing to this is my proposal, here's my resources, blah, 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 that would possibly change the score. Yeah, but we have to draw the line. I mean, if we're going to try to use a data set to do this,
Yeah.
we have to have some black and white lines.
I agree, but I think it needs to be changed, because if you look it up, and just because there is a lot of discussion, it says the person who actually uses a particular product. That's all I'll say.
I swear,
again-
I swear the way you were thinking, the way you're talking.
And again, the scoring is up to our interpretation of it. Now, should we define that for our use? Yes. And say, we can change the language on that, certainly. If you think it would affect the outcome. Again, this discussion is exactly what I was hoping for in terms of clarifying what we're talking about. Because some of the other ones are somewhat, I wouldn't say vague, but open to interpretation. Like,
It's
for instance, aviation experience in Bonner County. Very open-ended. Both applicants have significant aviation experience in Bonner County. If someone's been here for 20 years and someone else has been here for 21 years, is that worthy of a different score? No.
Well, that was like in the value. What one proposal was 360,000 speculation, the other one was 350. I built a hangar. I didn't get anywhere near my number. And I'm not going to talk about numbers, but wow.
We'll just take your word.
Totally subjective. Yeah. But that's for the next go around, right?
Well, I think.
Narrowing it in, that is.
In speaking to that, I have a fair amount of experience with hangar builds, not doing them myself, but being around them. And some recent ones out at Priest River, and the estimates in these proposals are within a single percentage point of
That's
what the
fantastic.
actuals are. Yeah,
That's some excellent bidding.
yeah, yeah.
And both parties on that.
You know, and one of the things that I have found in doing this for the many years, 17 years I've been doing this, is that people have no concept of the cost of building a hangar on an airport. Unless they've done it before. And even then, it's kind of like, oh my God.
Yes.
So, any more discussion or talking, concerns, chat?
When I got a question real fast. When we go to the, working on improvements for the next go around, that's gonna just be in a committee form, right?
I'm just hoping to do it now.
We
Immediately.
learned
after-
an awful lot just by listening to the discussion.
Yeah,
Yeah, I was hoping to do it now, since we're all here
yeah,
and we want to do the next one quickly.
yeah.
We can make those changes, and I can make the changes to the document, send them around to make sure I captured everything that everybody was thinking, and then we can,
Okay, so I have some
Put it
thoughts
out.
on the quality of the finishes and stuff.
wait a minute,
Okay.
should we, since now we're talking about improving our process, I think is what you're talking about.
Yes, I was, yes.
We should probably make a decision about which of these, or if any of these, we want to make a recommendation to the commission.
Okay.
And that would be in the form of a motion because it's a recommendation to the commissioners. That motion would sound something like, I move that we recommend to the Bonner County Commissioners that they enter into a lease agreement with
Blah, blah, blah.
either
Yeah.
Fontaine or Woodward.
Based on the results of our matrix, which is analyzing the applications, I would make a motion that we recommend to the commissioners to enter into a contract with Fontaine.
Is there a second
I second.
discussion?
Is this for lot 32 and lot 33?
This is for lot 32. All in favor?
Aye.
Do we need a roll call vote for that?
I would if I knew everyone's name. Give me a moment. Top of my-
I can call them out if you want.
Okay, roll call vote. Shanley,
Yeah, aye.
Dave Shuck,
Yes.
Jeff Conley,
Aye.
Joe Grant,
Aye.
Gavin,
He did say aye.
and Bob.
Motion passes. Thank you very much.
I will say it was very
Thank you.
impressive doing it this way, to analyze both of those and to actually see how close they were.
With
Yes.
people
Might be
involved.
just a couple points off in the end.
And that speaks to the quality of the proposers.
Yeah.
So the question I have in going through this is our process, the way it's set, a few minor tweaks and tunes we're going to talk about,
Yeah.
sufficient to give us differentiation between two proposals?
It'd be interesting in private to discuss like how you came up, what was your methodology, personal methodology on why you selected a number for a side. That's what I wanted to talk about too.
You can't do that, though.
Now we can.
It's a lot of the emotion.
It'd be interesting.
Yeah,
But-
nice.
It's a true answer.
That's why there's no names on this.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
And we're going to have the opportunity to do this a lot. So.
Oh, boy.
Well, you can do what you did this time and kind of abstain.
Oh, did I? I got you. I thought I got you in time. That I was given 10 o'clock.
All you said was,
Oh.
I think these guys.
Oh,
That's not a numerical value.
that's true.
That was more subjective than objective.
Just a little more than what I did.
Thank you, Mr. Conley. Thank you.
What do you say, kiddo?
No, he said just a little bit more.
Yeah, I didn't do anything.
Well, I show up to more meetings than you.
There you go.
To be quite honest, I was not familiar enough with how they chose these different ideas, and And each one of them I came up with was like, how do you judge this? You know?
I made 4 or 5 of these tables with my discussions.
And I was like,
yeah.
I don't think I understand this well enough. I do a lot better now. But
Yeah, and this conversation is perfect for the next ones. Because like I said, there will be more. And so we'll have a better understanding of what we're grading and what the differentiations look like.
Were we hoping to, you're hoping to put out the RFP for the other lot next week and then,
Is that gonna be a 30-day from
and then
there?
have, or within the next 30 days and then have that available for next April?
What I'd like to do with all of these is have the decision made, the matrix, the scoring matrices and the decisions made at our quarterly board meetings. So in between the quarterly board meetings, we will put out RFPs, give the respondents plenty of time, 45 to 60 days. I think in this one they had 45 days because we didn't get out till November 11th or something. 45 days to respond, then give us 2 weeks or so, or 3 weeks to,
I'll be faster.
thanks, to look at it and come up with so that we can speak to it relatively quickly at the advisory board meeting next time it comes up. So what I'd like to do is get the one for 33 out in the next week or two, and then set the deadline dates accordingly so that the response will be like first week of April, they'll have to have their submission in. Then first week of April to the last week of April, you guys will have the scoring matrix and the ability to figure out what you think is the best proposals.
I guess now possibly add a category where if something's tied to it, like 33 is clearly potentially bound up with 32. You know what I mean?
It's not,
no, there's no way to do
I mean, it's not, but,
it's not.
it's not.
So what would have to happen is we'll put 33 out there. And if these guys happen to win, if they even submit on 33, and if they happen to win 33, then in that lease would be the requirement to build a triplex rather than just the 2 hangars.
Got it.
Because that was, at least in my mind, when I was doing the scoring, that possibility raised their score.
But no positive or negative that they already won, in a sense, the
No.
RFP for one of them. Okay.
Because someone else coming into lot 33 could come up with a better idea than they do.
Correct.
Like, for instance, we can get into the changes to the RFP. For instance, someone could say, well, I will donate $100,000 to runway lighting.
Amen to that, yeah, okay, yeah.
And we would go, that's a game changer.
Ding, ding.
We should consider that.
You can?
Good point, okay.
Yeah,
I guess
additional infrastructure.
Definitely, yeah.
So that's why we want to get as much benefit to the county as we can. So we need to be able to look at all those possibilities.
Okay.
While keeping it fair as we can.
Okay.
For people, so it's tough.
Amen to that.
Okay.
Thank you guys for your time.
Thanks, guys.
Consideration.
Do we need
Trey, you don't need to hang around if you don't want to. We're going to talk about RFP. It's up to you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Sure.
That was pretty neat, really.
for all of us?
Yeah, it's all new.
Man.
Apparently, you're gonna get to see it again and again and again.
It is interesting.
Hopefully we get Pat to show up this time.
You're not on
Good
the
time to
board
show
anymore,
up.
Scott. You could have done with these.
So, let's kind of go through the RFP process
Yeah, that's fine.
as best we can in the amount of time you guys want to. It's only 3:30, so. Anybody have that? Can anybody stay? Can anybody
Yeah,
stay?
we're gonna,
Okay, good.
do they chime out?
I don't think so,
Okay,
because we're gonna, whatever we decide, we're gonna release in the RFP anyway,
okay.
in the new RFP.
Hey, Chris, you copy?
Break one, Ryan. Chris, you ready?
Chris, pop off?
I'm here. You want?
Hey, yeah, a question for you. You had mentioned in yours that this has nothing to do with your actual submittal, but there might be something with Grant Insurance 22. And I know you're well versed in this. What did you mean by that?
Say that one more time. I don't think I understood what you're asking.
Evaluation criteria, end user A. The county still has a duty under Grant Insurance to not discriminate with respect to a user based on their economic ability. Do you think that that's something that we might need to change?
I put it in there because of the waiting lists that are currently somewhat long for a hangar. So my concern is that how do you get somebody a hangar that can't afford to build the hangar? Somebody that's starting out in aviation that has an airplane that, wants to contribute to aviation, but doesn't have $600,000 to build a hangar. How do you take care of them? No, I don't think it's something you would file a Part 16 with the FAA with. No, I don't think that would fly. But I think it's a criteria that as a board, you guys need to consider if you don't have sufficient rental hangars. But as you bring up, you're about to develop some additional property, and maybe when you develop that additional property, you'll put a criteria in there that some of the lots can be low cost rental lots, either shelters or something that would allow somebody without $600,000 to be able to have a place to park an airplane.
So Chris, I was going to speak to that as well. I think that's an interesting interpretation of number 22. The way I read 22, it says that we can't charge one party more for a given service than we charge another party, not based on their economic ability, but having that economic stability so there's equality amongst the fees and structure that we have. So if we're providing a service, we can't charge Bob $50 for ramp fees and Joe $20 for ramp fees. It's got to be equitable that way. So that was my understanding of
I think that is the current understanding, but nobody's made my argument yet. So maybe that understanding will change.
But where does that end? I mean, are we then going to be subsidizing poorer people's hangars?
I don't think you're subsidizing anything if you put a criteria in there that a certain portion of a lot is designed to be take the low cost housing thing that the cities are going through now. They're requiring a certain portion of a property to be available for low income housing. And I'm just kind of drawing the analogy there. Right. That you want to provide for these people that can't get a hangar. So, do you maybe put a preference item in your RFP that if somebody is going to build 5 hangars for rental at a prevailing average rate of hangar rentals in the 100-mile radius, or whatever you guys use, then I think you would pick up a developer that would be willing to put something in that would benefit the small guy. I'm just trying to find a way the little guy that has been on Ken Jackson's waiting list for 5 years to get a hangar.
No, I totally get you. And I think the way we do that is by designing the lots to accommodate certain hangar types. Like at Priest River, the new development that's going up behind the apron there, one of the lots is designed for T hangars. That's the only thing that you can put on that lot. So I think that's how we cater to the little guy, if you will.
I think we also agree with you more. I think that's the perfect answer, Dave. I really do. I just think it just needs to be in the planning process.
Exactly, yeah. And I think we're accommodating that with the lot design.
There might be something else you want to think about too, and that's is total financial value of the project up to 10 points. And when I listen to Chris, I think maybe not skewing it, but maybe not giving more points for, you're actually saying, hey, if you're willing to spend more money, we're going to almost guarantee you a spot.
And that is,
because if I said I was going to spend $100,000, you'd be like, yeah, well, go somewhere else.
Well, I think, it goes back to the definition of the lot, the given lot. In this particular case, there's only really one, maybe two uses of this lot.
Okay.
Right? You can put a 50 by 60 foot box hanger on it, or if you're lucky enough to get lot 33, you can put 3 across it. Now, other lots on the airport are going to be different sizes and shapes and accommodate different types of buildings. So like the bigger lots along Industrial Drive, it's got to be, a 100 by 100 foot building with a retail space in it, or something like that. So if someone's doing that and then putting a nice storefront on it, even though they're only going to use it as airplane storage for the time being, but putting a nice storefront on it, that's appealing to the county. That's why I'm thinking that.
Yeah.
In this case, it really isn't, it didn't matter that much, but we're trying to
But
have
it
a process
does-
that,
Listen to you, just, if I said, well, I'm gonna spend $750,000, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do that. What if I come in there and spend 300?
well, so if you said you're going to spend
As long as I go-
$750,000, then I would say you're in the wrong line. Because this is a $350,000 project, and somebody's gouging you,
Well-
that's what's happening.
I'm just talking about.
No, I understand.
Pure scoring.
I
I'm talking
understand.
about,
Yeah.
this is gonna get pretty
Right there.
interesting before it's over with.
Well, and that's why we're talking right now, is what can we do to make this less interesting?
I don't think, with what you're saying, I don't think, we don't really want to push, hey, whoever spends the most on the county airport is going to get this.
Yeah.
That's immoral, right, at the end of the day. It should be pretty standard. But if more I think about like, hey, if you're building this hangar, are you going to put parking spots on the side, or are you just going to hope to have the cars park wherever they want? That's going to be a big deal to me. If there's, let's say in front of the hangar, there's a catch basin and it's sunk a little bit too low and the paving is bad, we're like, and also we're gonna fix this catch basin in the middle of here because we don't want it here. That's a benefit to an infrastructure of the airport to me. Now, putting new lights in for the runway, yeah, I'd just laugh it off. Right.
But
I get it.
benefit to the county.
100%, I know, but yeah, it's like
You know, the relay that Dale was talking about for the pilot control lane, the radio we just bought was $5,000.
Yeah.
The relay that we got from Coeur d'Alene was $15,000. It worked for a while. But that's money we would have had to spend.
Oh, for
So
sure.
if somebody else is saying, hey, I'm going to invest in the airport, you could say it's a bribe, but I'm going to say it's improvements to the airport.
Well, and if it improves the airport too, I look at it like this, especially if you're one of these lease lots aren't as big of a deal, but one of the bigger ones in, say, industrial way, where there might be something that's beneficial to the tenant in particular, right? Until where, having actual runway lights that work would be beneficial. Having, different systems and stuff like that, those are beneficial things, or
someone says, hey,
repaving them to run the taxiway in front, in addition to their apron, makes sense to me. So I think there's different things like that. So, and I don't think we're gonna run into that as much as we.
And I think,
I'm sorry, do we have anything in there where it's like the percentage of certain size hangers to other size hangers and written in for Sandpoint? Like T hangers versus big 50 by 50, 60 by 60s, all those. Is there a ratio that we're striving for?
there's not a ratio, like a formula that has just
Yeah.
determined that?
Yeah.
No.
Like
What
at
we're
one-
doing is kind of looking at the market
Right.
and basically what requests we get.
Right.
I get far more requests for, hey, I'm gonna bring my Cherokee up there, or my 182, or my Super Cup.
Okay.
Not, I'm gonna bring my King Air, or my PC-12,
C4.
or my G5.
I'm glad you're getting those requests, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
So-
why I don't want to say, I want to bolster general aviation, not turn into a jet center, you know.
That's exactly right.
Sorry, Barry. What?
And
I mean, that's what happened in Palomar, and people got yanked out, and not only that, but it creates more and more
No,
noise for
I
the
agree
community,
with
and then
you.
it's,
I understand.
okay.
Well, the airport is what it
Andrew
is.
knows that we can't have jet pilots unless we got GA pilots.
It's a fact, it's a fact.
It's a
There's
fact.
that too.
It's a fact. No, our mix, our fleet mix that we're seeing is heavily weighted towards what we call GA aircraft.
Amen. Good.
So when we look at that, there are some spaces at the airport that are going to lend themselves to larger hangars and more retail facing, those ones on Industrial Drive.
Amen.
Back of that, those are all going to be small box hangars and maybe a set of T hangars if we can get a developer to actually
Yeah.
build T hangars, which is the other challenge. We can, like at Priest, we've got, I think it's a 10 T hanger lot designed.
Well, Well,
So
10's
I-
hard to swallow for one developer.
Exactly. So
Okay.
I can't expect Joe Grant to go out there and say, hey, I'll bid 1/10 of the T-hanger complex you're putting in there. And I got some other friends who are gonna jump in there as well.
Yeah.
No, it's gonna take a developer to go in there and put in T-hangers. And then that developer, as Andy can speak to, is gonna have to get some return on investment.
Yeah.
And is that gonna drive the rent up above what is palatable for the market?
Yeah, yeah.
It could.
It's a tough one.
It could.
Back to the additional investment in airport infrastructure, it's only 10 points. So at
Right,
the end of the
it's
day, you can throw in 300 grand, you're gonna get one extra 2 points.
Exactly.
You know, that's not gonna play a factor.
So, and keep in mind, you bring a very good point, that these are all weighted based on the benefit to the airport. So even if somebody does come in there and say, like, I'm gonna give $1 million, okay, then you got 2 more points. Way to go.
Yeah, yeah.
So what do you think of this for A instead of end user, proposed end use? I don't know. I just don't like it. I'm telling you. There's this,
Well, we need
you
to
look at these right here and you look at what I was talking about.
Yeah.
It changes
You know, when
the
I-
whole thing, dude.
When I did my setup, one side got 0 for that because they weren't going to initially be the end user, and they still won out the bid at the end.
Right.
So,
I
and
get
that's
half points.
That's, you know what I mean? Yeah, I did half points.
Half points for the end.
Yeah, I broke, so it's
But
not
if
the
you
end
look
all
at
of that
it-
end user. It's not.
And that's one of the reasons that we have a group, and it's one of the reasons that you guys don't get to see everybody else's answer.
Yeah.
We don't want to come up with the same answer.
Right.
We want to have different opinions and
Yeah.
come to basically a homogeneous response for the airport users. It's another reason why there are only 3 government representatives on this board and there are 4 user representatives. Users are the guys who are deciding what's happening.
We carry the weight.
You do. You do.
Stand down, Mr.
And that's as it should be.
I think that's great. I mean, we're a general aviation board, period.
We are.
Good.
And neither of the airports are ever going to be more than that.
And I think at the end of the day.
Thank you.
You can score it and read it just about any way you want, and the results are not a guarantee because everybody's gonna have a different idea.
Especially if you don't pin me down in my argument on why. Yeah.
I guess the one thing in, kind of going on that same vein as what Mr. Conley was talking about, when you look at this as far as that first one for the end user, some people they've been really wanting to build a hangar. And they have an opportunity here to build a hangar. And we also have on the other side of it, we have basically developers who are planning to develop that and lease it out or whatever. And I still feel we have a certain commitment, to the individuals who really would like to build a hangar, And I think that was basically for the end user there. I scored them differently for that reason. Because I know there have been, and Bob, you're an example, you've been wanting to build over at Priest River for a long time. And things haven't lined up over there yet.
That's one of the reasons I'd like to keep the definitions a little more
Vague.
subjective.
Yeah.
So that you can
It
put
gives all
your
that
perspective in
variability
it.
in there,
You
yeah.
can put your feeling about it in there. If we just say, one of the things that Bob and I talked about a couple of weeks ago is a lot of times when you were doing things in law enforcement, the objective questions were essentially pass-fail, not graded on a point scale. We could make these all pass-fails. I think that would turn, I think
They'd
that
all
would,
be passed.
I think, well, then we have to define it a little bit, right? I think that would kind of get away from what we're trying to accomplish here. So I like the idea of having it be a little bit squishy.
Squishy.
And as we do more of
Can we
these,
call it corny?
corny, as we do more of these and we have these discussions, we'll get a better idea of what the intent is.
Okay, then what do we do, now that we're past this one, what do we do about that ticky-tacky guy that got bumped because of a date? I mean, now it's the foot in the door, and he wasn't wearing his socks, but the foot was in the door, but, I didn't have the right color socks. That sucks, right?
Yeah.
Andy?
So, no, what I'm doing when I'm looking at this, I'm looking at, there are 4 criteria, there might have been 5, but let's say there's 4, were any of them missed? Doesn't matter what they were,
Yeah, you're right.
doesn't matter.
can we reject them before the due date? Like, if you look at me like, yeah, sorry, it was rejected, you don't have to say anything why. You just be like, or you don't have to say, you messed up, sorry, this was rejected. So let's say for the next RFP, for lot 33, we open it up for that 45 days. Somebody submits it in the first 5 days. Can you look it over and be like, you don't have to say why, but just, that's rejected.
This is missing something.
This is missing something.
I think that's a pre-check. I mean, if they're willing to get it done in time enough to go through the pre-check, I mean, you do it on housing inspections.
Oh, 100%.
All kinds of stuff, like, give me a pre-check. Because remember, we're here to help them.
If they submit on the last day, they're out of luck. And it's not your responsibility, but this is.
And this is just so that we can judge them.
I don't know, what do you think, Jeff?
I believe that, there's a certain time where you have to set out rules. Now, I don't know if I agree with that per se, but like, bring it here and it's got to be stamped and show it's received by this time, period, that's it. That way the confusion kind of goes away and there's a set parameter. And if you're 5 seconds, couple minutes late, it's over. You don't get it.
Yeah, if it's
You're
12:01.
We've kicked bids out for pavement.
I had a time clock in my business. If
It's
you're
like-
late, try again tomorrow.
Yeah.
Don't be late.
And I think we're not, and I don't mean this in the wrong way, we're not trying to be fair to everybody. We're
Whoa.
trying to be fair in the context of the RFP. So in doing that, if you set out specific criteria, it doesn't matter if you got to show up wearing a stocking cap and the guy comes in with a cowboy hat. If that's the criteria, you can't be considered. Whatever we decide that criteria is, they have to adhere to it. And if they don't, light or heavy or jokingly or ridiculous as that may be, they didn't. And like I said before, if all 3 of them had missed it, we'd be
different.
we'd be considering everybody because it was either too vague or misinterpreted by everybody.
Or you kick
Then
them
the fault
all.
would be on our
Or
side.
you kick them all and do it all over again.
That was the only one.
And pre-checks do create a lot of extra work for you or whoever.
Well, the concern I have with pre-checks is that, so let's say somebody throws something together and throws it in and
I know where you're gonna go with this.
and you reject it, and then they try it again, you reject it, you try it again, you try it again, try it again, try it again. And then one guy does all the homework and submits a perfect one.
Yeah.
It's like,
It makes sense.
we
Or
coach
if they're gleaning details.
we're coaching
from
the
you.
one
Yeah.
guy how to get there.
Yeah.
Trust me, I thought about this with that one.
Yeah,
It's
but
like-
you don't allow them all to see them all either. I mean, these are private until they're made public.
Correct. But I mean, I don't want to, because I thought about this with the third submission, I thought, what I should do. What I would like to do, not what I should do. What I would like to do is talk to that person and say, here's what the criteria mean. Here's what you should do. But I don't think it's fair for me to coach one submitter.
But you can explain to them now.
I did explain that they didn't have the date, the due date on their envelope.
Perfect, there we go.
I
Plus, if
can't,
there's a little hand-holding and even just the RFP.
I can't
little
go beyond that.
instruction.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Even when they submitted it. And after, yeah.
I can't, unless I'm going to coach everybody, or we are going to coach everybody.
I agree with what you're saying, yeah.
You can't coach one, no matter, I mean, then you just get into the old boy club, and you're just,
Right.
then it's like, I like Andy a lot, so I'm gonna tell him how to do it the best.
No,
Can't do
it's a
that.
challenge doing all this stuff. But
Yeah, the idea is right. You're not off. It's just trying to get it a little
Fine-tuned.
bit more tuned in, but, yeah.
So do we, and just in perfect honesty, I've been in customer service my entire career, and no matter what you do, somebody is gonna be pissed.
Oh, boy, the old saying, you can't please everybody all the time, you can't please anything.
And I don't
I
mean
was in
that,
customer service too. Terrible business.
I don't mean that, I don't, and to, reference to anybody in this particular RFP, I just mean there's gonna be someone who takes issue with whatever your process is. There always is. No matter how black and white it is, there's gonna be someone that takes issue. And you've got to say, you've got to define it as best you can, and then listen to the appeal and consider it with a variety of opinions, and then say, okay, we understood. Sorry, here's what we came up with. So I think that's what we do there. Do we, so are we wanting to change language in any of these?
Now, after the way you explained it, I like the idea of like not nailing it so that it's narrow span, so that we have a better chance of coming in exact. I like that, I like your broadness of that, I do like that.
And I think that, and, you know, to Andy's point, you might get more points on that one, but you're gonna might get less points on a different one. They're weighted average, or they're weighted balances, so now, do we want to change the weight? We could look at that.
On
We've got,
On the 30 pointers, there was 2 categories, it was commercial and hangar. Did you guys split that in half, 15, 15, or did you go even beyond that?
Prioritization of airport
I
needs.
just knew that this particular spot really wasn't a whole lot about commercial.
and that is,
Commercial would have been if it does get to 3 hangars and they put a school in there.
I appreciate you bringing that up, because that was one of the concerns. I don't want to get this thing too lot specific on the criteria, but that particular lot, or those 2 lots, do not lend themselves to a commercial use, because you've got ground vehicle traffic going all the way across all the ramps and down all those taxiways, and you've got parking issues, it's best to have commercial use close to the road, as much as we can,
Even for mechanics.
even for mechanics. If, the ideal thing would have a mechanic with road front and airside front on Industrial Drive, that would be ideal. So I know we have mechanics on the airport that are way back in that corner back there. It's like, okay, it just creates a traffic challenge. And parking and the whole issue.
Aces is the biggest traffic jam you have back
Aces is the
there.
biggest traffic.
Sometimes, for sure.
So, back to
Could we have
this.
some sort of a checklist maybe? Because, you know, sometimes when you're submitting something, they'll have a checklist, okay, do you have this, do you have this, do you have this, do you have this?
That would be nice.
Actually, that's a good idea. I do that whenever all my students go for a check ride. I got a checklist of everything they need to bring in. And it's helpful because, you know, when you're on a timeline, especially, you know, you're sometimes
sure.
get rushed. So,
These guys are thinking about all this narrative, they're not thinking about, I mean, so yeah, we could create a checklist.
That'd be a simple solution. That's a great
Yeah, I like
idea.
that.
There's a lot of narrative there.
That should fix that then, yeah.
Yep.
And actually, if you guys want, I can respond to this and say that. What we decided, we considered it, what we decided was that we will include a checklist so that people have, because pilots are used to that, right?
Amen.
So,
And that was, I think, the intent of writing that, to get a response, not one that would be antagonistic from you. You know, not that you'd be at it, but that he would respond and just to, okay, why, so I really have clarity on this thing, and then what the board decided, and I think that would be fair, and he won't make that mistake again.
And that and number
If you
33 is
submit.
coming right
It's a
out.
good experience for us.
And 33 is the heavy one too, by the way.
It is, you know,
And
make
hanger.
boo-boos.
yeah.
I mean, I guys like a hanger.
All right, thank you,
I think our
gentlemen.
discussion is completed.
Oh, by the way, do we need to adjourn? We're all walking out.
Apparently we are. We don't have to make a motion to adjourn. We never do. Do we have any miscellaneous business? No. We're adjourned.
There you go, you're done. Must have hit that time.
Thanks, guys.
Oh, God.
2 hours, that's not bad. Thanks, Gavin. Thanks, Chris.
Hey, no problem. I appreciate it. We'll see.